Louis Farrakhan, through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, deals with the question of the origins of race. And one of the questions that is posed that we've studied, it says, well, first of all, it says, who is the original man? And the answer to that question is the original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. Then there's another question posed, who is the colored man? And the answer to that is the colored man is the Caucasian white man, or Yakub's grafted devil, the skunk of the planet Earth. Now, within that, there is a whole body of knowledge and further teachings that come out of that, because you have to look at the nature. In the nation, we're taught about root knowledge. So when we're dealing with, we don't like to say so much the one, we say Caucasians. And when you say that, then you have to look at it. It gives you another concept and another perspective about who we're dealing with. And the Caucasian is and always has been the open enemy of the black man, the original man. And so when you look at the type of thinking, the type of behavior that they manifest when it comes to us, it's not new. It's been happening over the generations. And when you look at colonialism, you're with me, the way they've marched in with weaponry and just taken over lands of people, you're with me, subjugated them. You know, when you look at what our experience was during the transatlantic slave trade, you know, that gives you an example of how we were forced to drop our names, you know, our culture, our religion, our God, our mores, our traditions. All of those things were taken away from us by force and violence. Then they took it onto another level where when they got us in numbers up to work on plantations, yes, for virtually nothing, then it was about justifying their behavior by writing us into their literature, yes, as subhuman. In fact, in the American Constitution, we were referred to as 3/5 of a human being. So that, from which relegates us into the sphere of animals and justifies them doing what they wanted to do. So that then breeds in their minds that we are not like them. And so they are superior to us and everything is justified. So I think Brother Toya mentioned it earlier. They justified it within their books, on their media. So when he and I were growing up in the 60s and 70s, you had programs, really derogatory programs, referring to black people as wogs, nignogs, you know, Sambo, you know, so-called love thy neighbor. You see the deception. And the black and white minstrel show, you know, that kind of thing. So that kind of, those seeds breed in the minds of those who are watching. It's always going to be
And I want you to think on this wise and to come back to it after Sister Empress expresses her point or question, which is, again, leading on from what you just said, brother. Sometimes when I'm in schools and sometimes, you know, amongst the young generation, if they're given a task or some work that they don't want to do, the expression, that's just long, that's long.
Yeah.
And so to combat that, I always have to say, you know what, okay, so you find it's too long to do that work and you don't want to do it, it's too hard. Yeah, sir, it's just too hard, it's long. Fine. But that's good because you're proving a man called Edward Long correct. Who's Edward Long? Oh, Edward Long is a Caucasian British man, I think originally from Scotland.
Yes, sir.
That was commissioned in the 1800s to go to Jamaica and do a study on the enslaved Africans on the death plantations of Jamaica. And he went there. They said it was a study, but he was commissioned to come with a foregone conclusion, which is Africans are inferior and cannot be educated. And he came back with that to the UK. It was published. It became policy. It became policy. So then I turn around to the young people now and say, well, look, inferior and you can't learn. No, how can you say that, Mr. Hakeem? No, we got this. So look, it has been a long-standing issue. Yeah. Sister Empress.
Yes.
There was a point or question you wanted to raise.
I just wanted to, good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank
Good
you.
evening, sister.
Thank you very much to Professor Toyin for this presentation. Excellent presentation. And I really just wanted to, first of all, make an observation about language and the fact that in talking about the IDPAD, one of the things I think Uncle mentioned, and I think yourself, Hakeem, and of course Toyin affirmed, is that we have to take responsibility for the use of our own language. Because once we speak English, we have a history when we look at our liberation to self-define. And whilst we haven't necessarily had the advantage of the African American communities, we've literally had communities like Brother Toy's, Professor Tony Martin's, Dr. Barry Shanglo, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Dr. Khalid Muhammad, Newton. They literally had a whole generation. The 60s African American Revolution with the Black Panther Party, Kwame Ture with Black Power. There are ancient examples of the positivity of Black. It was the European that demonized the word Black. And we know Marcus Garvey, one of the greatest world leaders post-enslavement of our people, said that they have tried to make being Black a crime. I will make Black being a glorious badge of honor. So that's where the use of our language and understanding our history will allow us to likewise empower anyone who may think that it's a negative. No, it's a positive. However, attached to that, of course, is African. because we know that there are now white Europeans saying they're African. And this is another reason why I think it's important to say we're Black African, because the very fact that we say that makes us not the same as they are.
Okay.
When they're saying they're African, that's their excuse to run away from their past as being invaders and settlers from Europe in Black Africa. Okay, so I could talk some more about that. I think the point has been made. So really, the question I wanted to put to everyone, but in particular to the sister who mentioned that a report was done in respect of trying to find out whether or not Britain moved forward. I remember vaguely seeing a memo, and I did respond to the email memo asking people about what was their experience of living in Britain. But my thing is, in light of the fact that this is the sector, a report defining Afrophobia, which I think is excellent and necessary, was conducted and was published. I think it's important that if there isn't already, we have a space online where we can direct people that they can access that information, read it, and continue the conversation. Because as we know, in light of what's happened with, they were race riots in this year, there are still a lot of people that have been feeling trauma from that. All of us have degrees of, levels of trauma from just seeing those horrific scenes, and as the professor rightly said, we know the impact of that. I would just follow on likewise from what Wayne Mohammed said. I wasn't that surprised. When I published my book in 2013, I talked about Afrophobia. And again, that Afrophobia wasn't even really being talked about then. But fortunately, because of the kind of gatherings I was going to, I'm sure Brother Twin would have introduced it to me. Someone would have mentioned it in those gatherings. And so, whilst it's now familiar and it's great to learn that it's now finally in 2019 being recognised, although we didn't even get to acknowledge it, but the fact that they have recognised that we're serious about them knowing that it is a specific mindset that exists within some of their people, and they have to deal with that. So really the question was, I think it'd be great if we could, when we've concluded here today, if we haven't got already, have an on-site portal so that even the information from today's gathering in terms of your presentation for it, that information can be available. Because sometimes information is everywhere, so it's a maze, and as we already know, it's information highway.
Yeah.
So if we have one
streamlined.
Online site that we can all contribute to, Nation of Islam, Brother Twin, reparations activists like myself, and the general public, our community knows where they can go to get information.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your brilliant points and unifying points. I love the fact that, yes, to be self-liberated, we must be self-defining.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I love the way you harmonize that. Also, can you just let people know the book that you published?
Right.
I mean, please let people know its name.
Thank you. The book was published in 2013 by an independent Black book company, Blacks in Science. Michael Williams is the founder of that. He's published numerous Black books and he's produced a whole series on Blacks in Science. So I was particularly blessed and happy for him to go on his course of study and then him to agree to publish my book. The title of the book is A Mixed Jamaican in Multicultural and Racist Britain, ? And I say that because whilst I may smile thinking about the fact that I was able to publish without having to change my script, and listen to other professional writers say that they had to conform on occasions, or else they would be published.
Sure.
I'm really grateful that I was able to write from an independent perspective without having to pretend that, everything's grows in the garden and things are significantly different for us.
Sure.
So thank you for
and I definitely advocate for people to purchase that book, because I did purchase a copy. Even got the sister to sign it, so you better become famous one day, so it becomes even more valuable. Okay.
Oh, well, I mean, the most important thing for me is because there's no sign of image of me on the front cover. You've got our famous heroes and heroes.
Yeah, it's a good study. It's a brilliant study. It's a brilliant study.
I would appreciate the support. Thank you, my brother.
Just want to ask. Sure.
Excuse me. I'm taking pictures. I know this sister here said she doesn't want pictures, but is everybody else okay to take pictures?
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay.
I wanted to take you while you were talking, sis, but because I haven't asked you.
Oh, all right. Well, we can do some pictures afterwards. We'll do a group picture.
So sister's in the media for years, so
I don't know about being in the media for years. I've been in the community trying to.
oh, I've seen you. I've seen your face in demonstrations on ITV News over the years, and so yeah, believe me, your face is around. So.
Well, I think probably on that note, I can just add, since you mentioned that, I think the greatest accolade I had in that respect was someone said they saw me shaking hands with Mr. and Mrs. Mandela. And of course, I referenced that in my book because that has got to be, for me as a young activist, probably one of the greatest days in my life. So the young people that listening, please do not be downhearted. There is a history of Black resistance in Britain, and I think with my book as well, you'll begin to get an idea of how far-ranging that is, and there is hope in the future.
Thank you. So, Dr. Brother, I think, did you want to answer the sister's point, especially the beautiful suggestion of maybe having whether it's a website or website page that deals with IDPAD, so people can see what it's about, people can contribute information. Do you think that's something that can be done, should be done?
No, this is a great idea. I mean, these are great. I'm a nerd, right? So archiving our history, storing it, making it accessible so you can push it forward and the next generation can learn from it. I'm always going to be in support of these wonderful ideas. The only thing is different, I suppose, is that as I've become an elder myself, is that I don't take on all of that as I used to. And so I'm very firm that it's now for the next generation to start stepping into that role. And I'm quite adamant about that, or else that's a failing on not just my side, on our generation. But yes, it's definitely the right thing to do.
Absolutely, and I agree. I think it's a brilliant idea, sister. Good to see you again.
Yes, and we use it.
Yes, ma'am. And that's, we need online information hubs where our people generally can go and seek, good information. We have to take control of the narrative.
Yes.
And that in and of itself is a way of pushing back and resisting and countering a lot of the negativity that's out there being published against us individually and collectively. So we just need to be clear about any such entity online being fit for purpose. So the key people coming together, making sure it's planned and the terms of reference are clear and appropriate. But yes, let's run with it. And the nation would be happy to participate in that, once it's been signed off by our European representative.
Thank you, Brother Wayne. Another question I want to throw out, but I want to take it from a different angle. Half of my family's from Nigeria, the other half is from Barbados. I also have some Antigua links, but I want to use Barbados. And the reason why is because Barbados, wrongly or rightly, has been labeled in the past as Little England, right? So, yeah, okay. But to all my Bajarian people, don't watch that. So, taking it from the angle, I mean, the population of Barbados is about what? 300,000. And the white population make up something like 2.7%. If you was to switch on Newsnight tonight or tomorrow or after the weekend, if you was to switch on BBC News 24 and you heard the newscaster say the white British expats, they don't call them immigrants, is that right? Expats that are in Barbados, 10% of them are in mental health institutions. 15% of that 2.7% make up the Bajan prison population. 50% of that 2.7% of the population are unemployed. White children Bayesian children, white Bayesian children who go to Bayesian schools
Mm.
are 6 times more likely to be excluded than their black Bayesian counterparts.
Mhm.
There has been numerous deaths, wait for it, in Bayesian police custody
Mm.
of white Bayesians.
Come on.
Would it be the UN having an international decade of people of European descent, or would the UN and the white powers declare a national emergency for those Caucasians, British expats in Barbados? And if that's the case, why hasn't the UN been stronger in their political power, considering all the research has been done over 10 years and they know we're still suffering? We know we're still suffering. Why hasn't there been a state of emergency declared and action?
You want me to answer?
Please.
It's a great question. The first thing
It
is, I'm not here as a representative of the UN.
I know, yeah, but we have to hold them to account.
No, it's true. But the International Decade for People of African Descent is really just a vehicle for us to talk about ourselves, challenge ourselves, to set goals, to set aims, and to acknowledge what's been happening to us. So that's kind of like, I think it's a responsibility for me to do that. And that's the reason why this event is taking place. It's not because of my allegiance to the UN. But the United Nations is the closest the world has to a club for all the nations around it, around one table. It's not a powerful institution simply because those in the Security Council are white supremacists. So it means that it is always limited as to what it can do. And the perfect example, literally, I mean, I don't like to always refer to this. It's literally looking at what's taking place in Palestine, and we're seeing what's happening in Gaza. And so we can see that the majority of United Nations members want it stopped. We can see it's going through the International Court of Justice. We can see the direction of what's happening. It has not stopped it. Okay, this is with the majority of the council wanting it stopped. So I'm under no illusions of how its hands are tied.
Right.
How it's, you know, how on one level it has UNESCO, which does wonderful education work, which does, and I'm not that sort of person that will pretend that all the work that it does is useless. It's not. When it comes to cultural work, educational work, there are programs it does which are helpful. But when it comes down to political work, which is dealing with violence, dealing with injustice and structural violence, these things, it is almost new. So whether the United Nations calls it a state of emergency or not, nothing material will change. The only benefit of having United Nations doing this is actually to put pressure, social pressure, cultural pressure. So like with the situation with Palestine, for example, going to the International Court of Justice isn't going to stop the barbarians who are involved in Zionism from murdering children and families. Okay, this is not going to stop it. But what it does, it makes it difficult for those who are within nation states that are members to actually put their hand up and keep supporting it. It's like a trickle down effect. I believe in revolutionary action, but I'm also a pragmatist. And I know that while the military power remains in the hands of the United States, while the nuclear armament remains in the hands of white supremacist states, then as much